Yeah, the technician trap's the biggest thing. I get asked, Richard, I remember when my kids were growing up, my oldest son, he's in his 30s now, but when he was around 14, 15 years old, he asked me one day, and I remember it very well. He said, his little brother was with him, and 9 years old, a little kid with burr haircut and little glasses on. He doesn't look anything like that now. But so my oldest son asked me, he said, Dad, what's the most valuable skill that I need to learn, as a grown-up? And he's about 14 years old, something like that. And I don't know what he expected me to say, but what I told him was, you need to be a great communicator and you need to learn how to sell. You can do that. Everything else will come easy for you.
Are you tired of working more for less profits in your home service business? What if I could show you $100,000 in hidden annual profits in your business in less than 3 minutes? Would you be interested? And not only show you where, but how to create that 100K in 6 months or less without additional advertising or marketing spend guaranteed. Just go to sharpenthespearcoaching.com to see how truly simple it is. That's sharpenthespearcoaching.com. Do it now.
And we are back on STS, Sharpen the Spear podcast, with another incredible guest. I've got Dale Gibbons with us today. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation because I know Dale pretty well, and I know what he's going to bring to the episode today. So we have a tradition, Dale, and that's no one knows Dale better than Dale. So Dale, fill us in, give us a little backstory, bring us up to speed, and we'll get into our topics and conversation of today.
Well, that's a good tradition. When you said we have a tradition, for a nanosecond, I was a little bit concerned there for just a bit. Great. Thanks for asking. Let's see. I am 30 years old in each leg now, so, they say that's the new 40, so I feel that. I'm all good with it. Good. I live in Indiana on a farm, a timber farm, 111 acres, with 3 dogs and 2 cats and a wife of 34 years and a pretty awesome internet connection, so that means I'm all set up with all the essentials. I have been, I've been in business for quite a long time. Actually, an interesting 15 years in the corporate world in the first part of my career, and then had an opportunity. I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. Lots of different things when I was young, selling shoes and everything you could think of to get off my parents' payroll, so to speak, And so I had an opportunity to buy a business in 2005, and I did that and didn't look back. So I've been an entrepreneur ever since then. Or business owner, I should say, ever since then, and as well as an entrepreneur. Those are different things, 2 different things.
Yes,
you can be a business owner and not be an entrepreneur. Yeah, and I've several years ago, actually 2007, I started consulting, kind of as a just an additional thing that I did. I was helping a lot of businesses. I turned around a business I bought in 2005, got some attention of folks in my inner circle and circle of influence, and they started asking me for input and help, and one thing led to another, and one of them finally said, you should get paid for this. And then there we go. That's kind of how it started. That was a while ago.
We had a similar thing, 20 years in business, and I lost everything, started over, ran 2 more business. People started asking me, how'd you do that? It's amazing how that works. Like you said, it's time to get paid to do this. I want to help other people. It's good.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. It's an interesting journey. We learn the most valuable lessons whenever we have those really, really painful experiences like you just mentioned, where you lose everything. Nobody wants to do that, but you get a lot from it.
Dale, it's interesting because I talk about this, time to time about failures, and like I tell people, because they ask, it's really hard, right? You lose your business, lose your home. I have 6 kids, little kids and wife, and like, what are you going to do? And you turn all that around, 15 years later, people are like, oh, wow, how'd you, it's all like good. I'm like, well, you weren't there then. It wasn't good. So what I want to do now is let me take my struggles, my failures, the stuff I did and did not do, and share them with you. So when you take the time to reflect, what I had to do was connect dots. What did I do wrong? All that kind of stuff. And you figure that stuff out. You're kind of like me. We start to see these patterns that a lot of business owners fall into very quickly, right? Whether they start as a technician or whatever it is, and they get in because they do something. They don't do business. They do a trade, they have a craft, they do something they're bringing to the world that people want, but they don't understand the business part. And that's the struggle, because you can always make money. You can always go out and make some more money and sell things, but we know what happens with that, right? Pretty soon that's the hamster wheel you got to stay on, because you got to keep making money, and it ends up being you who has to make all the money, which is difficult. Then you have no leverage, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, it's been interesting how things have unfolded over the decades. I think one of the very first authors that wrote about this was Michael Gerber in his classic book, The E-Myth, the difference between the technician and the entrepreneur. And what did he say? Most business owners are technicians with having an entrepreneurial seizure or something like that.
Yes.
I think that's exactly right. It hasn't changed much. I have conversations all the time. I mean, you and I were on a call today where we had that discussion, actually. And it's really, really common. The world's changing with artificial intelligence. That's going to impact that in a significant way too, I think, at least. But yeah, I mean, it's one of the best opportunities for folks that want to own their time and, be able to do what they want to do. Certainly entrepreneurship and having a business is a great way to do that. It's probably the only way to do that I know of, unless you win the lottery or something. But yeah, the technician trap's the biggest thing. I get asked, Richard, I remember when my kids were growing up, my oldest son, he's in his 30s now, but when he was around 14, 15 years old, he asked me one day, and I remember it very well. He said his little brother was with him, and 9 years old, a little kid with burr haircut and little glasses on. He doesn't look anything like that now. But so my oldest son asked me, he said, Dad, what's the most valuable skill that I need to learn, as a grown-up? And he's about 14 years old, something like that. And I don't know what he expected me to say, but what I told him was, you need to be a great communicator and you need to learn how to sell. You can do that. Everything else will come easy for you.
I would have said exactly the same thing. And I have told that to my kids, the same thing, because people don't realize it, like you're selling every day. And everything you do is a sale. Yeah. Whether it's communicating to convince them to do something your way, that's a sale. We're married with children. We do a lot of selling. Okay.
Right.
In the family, a lot of different ways, right? You can call it convincing too, or whatever it might be, but basically that's it. It's communication and sales. You're exactly right. And it is that, because I remember I heard a snippet of another podcast I was on. He had another episode, had a marketer on, and it was one of those rare times, and I'm not throwing marketers under the bus, but when I heard this absolute honesty from a marketer, marketing agency, she said, look, if you're down to your last, I don't care if it's your last $10,000, your last $100,000 in your business, whatever, and you come to me and think marketing is going to save you, I'm going to tell you to go away, because it's not. She goes, but I will tell you what you need to do. You need to go knock on doors. You need to go sell. Okay, If you're in that situation, no marketing campaign is going to save you. And I'm telling you, that was like the most refreshing thing I'd heard in decades. Someone who she could take that money and get the campaign and blame him for not whatever, but that honesty, that go sell, because that's where it's at. Right? We have to get clients, keep clients, right? We got those two things, but we got to sell. We got to get them in the door, whatever that looks like, and then keep them. So sales is never done. That's kind of the beauty of it, and why you have to be great at it, because there's a place to go with sales. We call lifetime profitable value. I don't want to sell someone something once for $100. I want to sell them something for $100 20 times, right? Or whatever that looks like, right? We want them to keep coming back. So that sales aspect, if you're going into business for yourself or as an entrepreneur in general, that's a cornerstone of the business. You have to learn how to do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I reframe the whole idea of sales, to be honest. I use the word sales because that's what everybody calls it, or most people call it and understand it as. I think we've all been in sales all of our lives. Some of us are just really good at it, and some of us are not good at it at all. And the idea of sales to me is leadership. To me, sales and leadership, if they're done correctly, are really hard to distinguish from one another. And if you think about what leaders do, they influence people, and this is a skill set that's developed over time. doesn't have to be a long period of time. Some people are more naturally disposed to it. I mean, they have maybe some talent, and then other people's less so, but it's like anything else. Hard work beats talent when talent won't work hard, right? And there's no different. I mean, it's the same. It's the same in life and skills and business skills, all these skills that we historically have called soft skills. But the author Adam Grant came up with a better word than soft skills. I can't remember what it is now, but it was genius. Anyway, worth looking up for sure. So yeah, leadership and sales to me, same thing. That's why I use, as I've shared with you in different venues and conversations, the benevolent servant leader framework is what I call it. I think it's my belief that if we do that and we have that framework about what sales is, then it makes it fun, doesn't feel icky, none of that. All of that goes away because we're doing it for benevolent reasons, and we're serving people and we're leading people.
Yeah, I think that's great. I'd love you to kind of give a high view of those 6 steps. But first, I want to agree with you because I think, if I remember, sales, the Norse word is like sale or something like that. I can't pronounce it right, but it's to serve. That's the actual, that was the Norse definition, is to serve. That's what sales is. And I'm like you, when I talk to people, depending on whatever your product or service is, whatever you're doing, whatever you're offering, it's incumbent upon you that if they don't get what you offer, and I'm, putting the plan that I have the best there is, I can help them the most, then you're doing them the disservice, right? Doesn't mean you're the crazy over the top closer and saying whatever you want to say, but it's I think it's that legitimacy benevolent servant is the right term. I'm just trying to think, because I'm just thinking about this. It really is it's genuine. It's an authentic approach to an offer. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think that's probably the best way I can put it at this moment.
Yeah. It's also, it's high integrity, and you have the other person's best interest as your high priority. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's important to understand, because so many people are jaded on sales and salesmen, because like anything else in the world, there's good and there's bad. Mm-hmm. There's people who do it really, really well, and there's people who do it very, very poorly, and a lot in between, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you've ever, when you think about it, I'm talking to the audience here, remember your best sales experience. Just remember that, like, go to that time when you had it was just like, I couldn't thank them enough for selling something to me. The whole process. I had that with a couch. Okay, Dale, talking like 96. I'm saving up. I'm trying to build out this. I had this little garden apartment, okay? And I wanted the best furniture I could get. I was going to buy one piece at a time. I was going to build this room out, right? So I had to save up a lot of money. So I went to this furniture store, and I go in, and the woman's like, great, offer me a drink. What would you like? Anything, cocktail, whatever. She's like, ready to go. Oh, she goes, if we were talking, I want leather. She said, well, here, sit on this. And the process that she took me through, it wasn't even a sale. It's like, yeah, I'm going home with this. Deliver this to the house, and that's whatever that is, 25, 30 years ago, right?
Right.
And you think you still remember that, right? Because that experience, they tied experience with the whole process, mm-hmm. So people find the right way depending on what the offering is, right? And I think it's a real gift when people are able to do that, or when a company figures out the way to serve their clients, their ideal clients, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think, I don't know, for me at least, it's helpful to separate the critical few from the helpful many. And I think in general, people are buying 3 different things. They're buying a solution to a problem, number one. They're buying, as you said, they're buying an experience that feels good. So hopefully solving that problem is a good experience that feels nice. And then thirdly, they're buying certainty. They want to make sure they're making the right decision. And I'm sure there are other things, but to me, those things are the 3 that really bubble up to the top. So if we can check those 3 boxes when we're working with someone, we're going to win more often than not. That's for sure.
Yeah. I think that the last one, certainty, is something I'm in my 35 years of being in business, that's a new one for me, as of recent, because the term, when you put it in certain, it's like, I remember writing it down when I first heard it. I'm writing it like certain, they're not certain. because I'll go clarity. They don't have enough clarity. There's a lot of different terms, but the certainty, the word itself, that's a solidifier. They're certain this is what they want. Like that is beyond clarity, way beyond clarity.
Yeah,
because
exactly
clarity,
right.
you're still in the understanding phase. It's clear, I understand, but do I want it? So I love the certainty part. Like that was really good for me to learn.
Yeah, certainty, and remember Robert Cialdini coined the term and made the term super popular, social proof in his book, and that's one of the things that social proof is for, is to give someone certainty. Because if you can see 10 other people that have had the same problem that you've had, and this particular offer and solution has solved it, now your certainty level might not be 100%, but it's probably a lot higher than it was before you saw those 10 people. And any other things that can provide or increase that level of certainty. Look, if you think about any situation you've been in where you backed away and you didn't make a purchase, you didn't trade your money for whatever it was this other person or whatever was offering you, I bet you 9 times out of 10 it was because of a certainty issue. You weren't certain that this was the right fit for you for all kinds of reasons. Now we get into different beliefs too, that cause a lack of certainty. You might believe that, okay, well, it works for these other 10 people, but you're different and it might not work for you. Okay. Or maybe it's because you don't feel like you have the time or resources to do whatever it is that those other 10 people did. Okay. Or the skills or the capital or the social support. Your significant other isn't going to support you with this. Okay. There's all kinds of reasons why you wouldn't have certainty, and they're around, different beliefs, but certainty is what it all boils down to, I think.
Yeah, I think here's an important thing on that. When you think about this, so certainty is that deciding factor, right? So we say that's kind of the linchpin for the deal. So if I'm on the other side, if I'm selling, okay, and I want to achieve that, whether it's face-to-face on a webinar or whatever you're doing, you have to think about all those things you just mentioned, Dale. The belief system in this, I don't have the skill, I don't have the support. You have to answer all of that in your pitch. Because those are certain things everyone's going to have some aspect of one or all of those objections. And if you can overcome those in your pitch, if you will, in your process, in your presentation, that's going to increase certainty. Hey, don't worry, we got coaches online 24/7. You can reach out anytime you're working on this, you can do that, right? So you're not going to be left alone. You'll have the support, right? You'll have this, you'll have that. If you ever think you can't do this, let me show you this person, and this is what they ran into, and they did that. So it's that kind of principle. Another little thing I started doing years ago, you have testimonials, right? And you're talking about certainty and familiarity. Hey, 10 people. I said, what I like to do is get the actual picture of the person, just a regular photo, because you know what people are looking for? They're looking for themselves. So if I'm 75 with gray hair, blah, 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 and I find that person, a guy who looks like he's 75 gray hair, and it works for him, it's going to work for me. If I'm a skinny guy, with lots of hair and this and this and this, and I find another skinny guy, who like kind of resembles me, have the same features, I'm going to be connected to that. That's part of social proof. That goes next level, because people because they'll scroll through the review. Oh, that looks like me. Oh, that looks like my mother. Okay, well, my mother likes it, I'll probably like it, or whatever the case, right? So it's kind of interesting when you talk about that, because you understand the basics, and then you start to how do you address it, right? That's when you're getting from an entrepreneurship, from a business owner, like you have to go to that level when you're serving your customers, because that's how you're going to come out, getting them the product or service you offer, but also have them being really happy with it and have that certainty. I think that's a good point.
Yeah, you build certainty along the buyer's journey too. From the moment this person's aware of you, and maybe it's you step up and say hello and you shake hands, or maybe it's they see you like this on a podcast, or they land on your website or see a social media post. You're starting to build that certainty from that moment. And if anybody wants to get better at selling, actually, Richard, it's really understanding that buyer's journey and understanding how to develop that certainty at every step of that journey. And to also understand what those beliefs are that they need to be handling along the way. And as that's happening, the person you're working with doesn't even realize that. So let me give you an example. So you're working with, we work in consulting, right? Business consulting and coaching and things like that. So when you're talking with a business owner, all right, one of the beliefs that lead to either higher level of certainty or lower level of certainty is, do I have the people, resources, and talent to do this? Or Richard or Dale is suggesting, okay, as a strategy to implement. Do I have the people, resources to do it? Time and talent, or talented arms or legs to do this? A lot of times what will happen, an amateur will go right past that. They either don't think to ask or validate that, or they're afraid of what the answer might be. So if they're afraid that the answer is no, and that will kill the sale, and so they don't even ask it, which is the worst thing you can do, because then that thing raises its ugly head. That belief issue and that lack of certainty raises its ugly head as a what? As an objection. Okay? I think if you handle these things correctly, there are no objections at the end. And what everybody calls the close, which I don't call it the close, I call it the commitment, because it's a two-way commitment. They're committing, I'm committing, okay? When we get to that place, it's kind of a non-event, really. I mean, there's no fancy, sales jujitsu you got to do. No, that's just not really required. In fact, if anything, you will hear them say, well, how do we get this going? That's when you know you've done it right. Okay. So as example, maybe one of the issues, and this going in, one of the issues could be, they believe they don't have the, the skills or the people who have the skills to do these things that need to be done. Well, one of the ways you handle that is you just ask them, hey, who other than yourself, Bob, as we think about this strategy we just talked about, other than yourself, who would be involved in implementing that? That's a great question to ask. That in my framework is what we call that's the diagnosis step. Okay. There's a few steps that lead up to that, but that's where we're diagnosing things. And so there's a list of things, but that's where we would handle that particular lack of certainty or that objection that's bound to come up if we don't handle it now. It's not like we stop them, Richard, and we say, okay, well, look, I know this is an objection I hear all the time, Mr. Business Owner, and and that is, I don't think I'm going to have. You don't say that. Okay, there's no reason to say that. You should never use the objection word. Okay, because now what you do, you just anchored that in their brain as something they need to object to later on. So
you just brought up you're trying to sell them. Right.
Now you're sounding like a
you're just like
a leader.
Yeah, it's terrible. No, you're exactly right. I think it's I learned a little phrase that really helped me too, was would it make sense? Mm-hmm. So instead of asking you really, I was like, well, would it make sense to pick colors on an install date?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, it would. And if it doesn't, well, what would make sense? And they tell you, and then you fix it, and you address that, and you go with it. And I've changed guys' lives with that one. Again, I learned, I didn't think of that myself, but it's like, that took that's no pressure. Well, would it make sense to pick colors on an install date now?
Yeah, that's great.
It's the best, I don't know. It's not, I won't call it an open-ended question, but in a sense it is. You're just like, all the options are theirs. They can say yes, no, and not feel bad about it. They can ask another question. They don't feel pressured. It's really good. I've really cool. Enjoyed using that. Yeah,
that's cool. Well, let me share with you a question that I got from a salesperson one time. That was the smartest question she could have ever asked me, and this has been 25 years ago, and I never forgot it. Okay, I mean,
was she selling couches? Was she selling couches?
No, she wasn't selling couches. No, so it wasn't the same person. This was a door-to-door salesperson, okay? A door-to-door salesperson. And I live in a somewhat rural area, so it's not like you can just walk down the sidewalk and get a lot of volume in a short period of time. I mean, you got to drive from one house to the other. So I hear a knock on the door, and my wife says, "Oh, somebody's at the door. I don't know who it is." Typical. So I go to the door, and it's a young lady at the door, and she's got a bag and everything. And I said, "Can I help you?" And I don't remember what she told me, but she reminded me of a college student who was just trying to scrap by and get things going for her life. And so I said, "Yeah, sure, yeah, come on in. How can I help you?" Well, she was selling water filters. Okay. Now, to me, I felt like I needed a water filter like I needed a hole in my head. Okay. I'm like, well, all right. I thought, okay, I'll listen to this young lady's pitch. She seems kind, and at least, and she even said something like, it'll help me make my boss happy if you sit down and listen to my presentation. So I'm like, okay. So here we are at the kitchen table. It's me. My wife wouldn't even sit in on it. She was busy with other things. It was me and my two sons, and my youngest son was about 4, and the oldest one would have been 9. Okay. So 4 and 9. And I'm at the end of the table. She's just to my right, and the two boys are on each side, one on my flank and the other on her right flank. And she's doing this water filter demo, and she gets the little thing out like you check chlorine with a pool to see how yellow it is, And it comes, she pours the water in, and it's real yellow, and it looks like urine or something like that, She might have even said something like that. And the boys are just they're really into it, like, "Ooh, that's terrible. Oh, that's nasty." And she knew she had this whole thing in the bag. And at the time, this is 20, 25 years ago. This is a $300 water filter. And so she pours the thing, and she got the yellow water. She runs it through the filter, and it comes out, and it's pure. It's like comes from an artisan spring, and I don't know, the Alps or something like that. And she says, "Well, Mr. Gibbons, there's really only one question to be answered. Would you rather buy a filter or be a filter?"
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Buy a filter or be a filter? My two sons are like, "Daddy, we don't want to be a filter."
She was thinking the whole time, it's a good thing these kids are here. She's closing the deal with these kids because
she knew she had this in the bag. So you know how the rest of the story goes. I get my checkbook out, and I spend $300 on a water filter. Why? Not because I felt like we needed one, but I was not going to be a total schmuck of a dad in front of my two boys and make them filter their own water, through their body.
Right. They'll never forget it. Yeah,
no, they
awesome.
remember it. They remember it to this day.
Yeah, I'm telling you, that's awesome. It is that. I mean, I know we're kind of getting into the sales stuff here, but it's so critical because this is where businesses fail. Even in my book, I talk about the economic engine for your business. That's what sales is. Mm-hmm. You can put more fuel in the engine. You can put less. You can increase the horsepower by increasing the sales, right? That's what it is. That's what's going to create the speed of your business, right? The growth of your business. Everything else is sales. Now, there's a ton of other stuff you got to do with your business, but if you don't have that, that's an uphill battle you're probably not going to win because you just can't generate the revenue.
Definitely not. Well, I mean, if you don't have a good strategy for finding and winning clients, I mean, you're just arranging deck chairs on the Titanic here, which is the case, unfortunately, for a lot of businesses. Yeah. Yeah.
So let's jump to another level here because let's talk about some of the other things that we do from this standpoint. So we understand the importance of sales. We're on that, but the reason I failed after my first 20 years in business, even though I'm making tons of money, I had the sales part. I got whatever I wanted for what I did. I was the best at what I did and all this good stuff, but I didn't pay attention to the business. I was too busy being the guy, being out front, winning the awards, being in the magazines, doing all that. I'll just make more money. Oh, we're short. I'll go make some more. And what we do now, you and I both, it's so awesome because, again, from my lessons of 20 years and then having to start over from nothing and do this again, I learned to focus on the other side of the business, and that's the business. Doing the work, providing a product or service, that it's very important to do that well, but that will not last. You will not grow. You will not create freedom, both financially and personally, right, without the ability to run, I'll just call it a clean business, meaning that you understand, your profit centers, your points of contact, where you have to be with things in order to be efficient and profitable in your business. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, I had a similar experience this was before This was before I was consulting full time. I bought the business I mentioned to you earlier in 2005. It was actually a software training company when I got it. And we had 14 employees, and pretty shortly after that, I had to kind of right-size things, and we went to 7 employees. And I turned it into a consulting business. And so I owned it for 10 years, and that was a successful turnaround. I sold it in 2015. So it was a long journey, but one of the things that happened during that time was I fell into kind of the same mode you were talking about. You know, I was busy at the Chamber of Commerce and getting awards for the Inc. 500 or Inc. 5000 list or what, you know, all that kind of stuff. Very happy about getting my name in the paper. And my accountant steps into my office, our bookkeeper steps into my office one day and says, guess what? You don't have enough money to pay payroll in 2 weeks. Well, that was a shocker. I mean, a big shocker, because we were, you know, our revenue was great. And, you know, even our profit wasn't bad, but we had a cash flow problem. And so I closed myself in my office for it was a 3-day weekend. And I just went through everything, Richard, everything. Because we had 48 employees at that time. And I went through everything. I was there for, I don't know, I slept in that place. And what I discovered was that there was a lot of money missing, okay? And the bookkeeper herself had actually embezzled tens of thousands of dollars from the company. The same one that had stepped in my office on Friday and said you can't make payroll in 2 weeks. When business resumed on Tuesday, I had my HR consultant and in my office with me, and a police officer out in the parking lot just in case. And so she was unceremoniously dismissed from the company, and I went to work fixing things. And what I developed from that is a discipline around managing cash flow that I still use today for my personal business, my personal finances, and my business finance. I actually wrote a book about it, just a short parable. And I've got a cash flow management process that I use. And I've shared with literally thousands of people since then. And that would have been back in 2009-ish, somewhere in there, I think, when all that happened. And so, yeah, I'm happy to share it. But, yeah, honestly, the tool I use, and I don't sell it, to be honest. I might sound like I'm leading up to some kind of offer. I don't have one. I'm happy to give it away to anybody that asks for it. But I don't know how we would operate our business, because if a penny sneezes in our business, we know about it, okay? And we can predict well into the future what our cash flow is going to look like. And most people are managing their business very myopically. You know, they're making decisions today about, you know, they're making financial commitments today, and they have no idea what the impact of that decision today is going to be 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 weeks from now. I mean, the further out you go into the future, the less reliable it gets, but it's pretty darn reliable. It's pretty reliable.
Yeah, I think it's so important. That's something I did, right? So I was cash rich, a lot of cash, big jobs, big payouts, really good. I just started buying things for cash. My thought process, well, I'm operating debt free. Oh, $50,000 skid steer, I'll buy that. Oh, $3,000 excavator, I'll buy that. You know, $41,000 website, I'll buy that. Didn't need it, didn't want it. Shut it down a week after it was launched because I'm a genius. And it's just that kind of money, and there's no forecast, no prediction. You think because someone told you be debt free, you're now that's your operating method, right? With no other input. Okay, so it was just like and my wife, I'm a little hard to get to in my head, you know, like especially back then I was a little bit thick. I knew everything. I was that guy. So when everything she'd be just like, you're doing what? And I go, well, you know, then I tell people like in my book and everything now, it's like, well, listen, like, well, yeah, I was debt free for the skid steer, but that was $5,000, but I could have rented it for $800 a month for the season. What could I do with that other $47,000?
Right.
Okay. During that same time, have it making money doing, you know, a lot of other things, right? All the things that way. It's just, you move fast and you think you're doing the right thing. And you're just, again, when things are good, they're good. When they're not, it's over. It's that kind of thing, you know? So,
right.
And I know exactly the stuff you're talking about because I got this from you as well. on the forecasting and everything else is really important. It's Parkinson's law, right? If your money doesn't have a place to go, it will evaporate. Everything has, like you said, a penny sneezes, you know where it's at. Everything has to be accounted for. If I came up to you, Dale, and I handed you $200, Dale, you're a good dude. And you stuck that in your pocket. Next thing you know, you go out to lunch with your wife, or you buy some drinks, and it's gone. You forget you even had $200, right? Like, didn't I have some? Where'd that $200 go? You don't even know, right? Because it wasn't earmarked for anything. It was just a thing you had. Well, people do that with their business.
Right.
It is just, well, I'm supposed to get a draw on Friday, so I'll have the money then. And I do a lot in the construction and trades industry. And a lot of these guys, again, part of the pattern is the next job pays for the previous job. That is, and they'll live in that cycle for years.
Yeah, that's a bad place to be.
Yeah, because one bad month and you're done.
Right.
Right. You never catch up.
Yeah, that's true. I implemented, look, I'm not an affiliate. I don't have any kind of connection this way, but I implemented Mike Michalowicz's Profit First method.
Good book.
Yeah, great book. I implemented that, and I did it kicking and screaming, to be honest. But I'd heard so much about it.
Did you use envelopes or bank accounts?
Bank accounts. I didn't use envelopes. No. Oh, my gosh, no. I get a rash just thinking about trying to do that. No, bank accounts. And I bank at a credit union, technically. It was very easy. They were very gracious about it. He kind of looked at me a little bit sideways at first. I'm like, well, yeah, this is what I want to do. And they're okay, that's fine. So they set up these little sub accounts or whatever. Yeah. So the cash flow management tool I use accommodates the Profit First method. My wife kind of manages that. We manage it together. That's the other thing too is, the way our business works. I mean, bigger businesses might have a CFO, but our business is my wife and I and 4 other people. She does all the data entry and all of the, all that sort of thing. And then her and I sit down once a week at least and go through everything together and review it. And we know the process real well. We know how the tool works and we know how to allocate things. And it's taken us a bit, took us a bit to get here, but it's a beautiful thing. It really is. Yeah,
it's really important. It's hard to emphasize. I've been on a lot of podcasts as a guest. I've been on Profit First guys, right? A lot of good guys. I've had them on my show. And it's when you have a system, because this is what most people don't have. They have, hey, Friday's coming up. What do we got? We got to make payroll. Okay. I can't tell you how many people operate that way. I mean, it's the number one drain. I've had clients like, all of a sudden I'm talking to them like, why are you hiring all these people?
Yeah,
well, we're getting more jobs. Yeah, but you're paying them $70,000 a year, and you just times that by 3, and then now you're taking on these jobs you really can't. So you kind of go down this road where the payroll thing alone, like managing payroll, managing employees, managing hours, that alone in a business, especially in a trades business or something like that, where overtime can get out of hand really fast. I mean, that's a whole animal of itself.
Listen, all you got to do is watch the nightly news and everything that's going on television with all the budget cuts and everybody complaining and all that. And listen, there's a story for every angle that you decide to approach this thing. But I can just tell you, and Richard, it's easy to tell who has never had to make a payroll. It's easy to see that,
Amen, brother.
Very easy to see that.
Yeah, it was one of those standing jokes you used to have, about those in those levels, the 535 people, running things. I'm like, have you ever had to make a payroll?
Exactly.
It's the simplest question. You just say like you haven't. You have no clue. You know what I mean?
There should be a special club and a special place in heaven, to be honest, for anybody that's
those who have. Yeah. Exactly. Hey,
yeah.
Man.
That's exactly right.
A special place for the others.
All right. There's a story I was telling you about the embezzlement issue, right? One of the things that I learned that I had that I didn't know I had, I called my insurance guy, or he called me. I don't remember. I ended up talking to my insurance guy, and he told me, he said, Dale, well, hey, there's good news here. And I'm like, really? There is? Well, I want to know because I got to figure out how I got to make payroll. And I gave him the date, a couple weeks out. He said, well, you have an employee dishonesty rider on your policy. 2 things. 1, I didn't know there even was such a thing that existed. 2, I certainly didn't know I had one. Okay. And I'm like, really? What's that mean? The short story is, minus the $500 deductible, if I could prove this money was embezzled from the company, they would pay it all back. And he told me what I needed to do to prove it. So, I went to work like a dateless cheerleader a week before prom to get all that together. Okay. And I managed to get it to him. He pulled all kinds of strings, and somebody from their corporate, the insurance carrier's corporate office, drove from Cincinnati to my office with a check. All right. And I got that check and I drove it to the bank myself, and I deposited it. No kidding. Scout's honor. I deposited the check 15 minutes before payroll was due. Okay. That's how close we came to not making payroll and basically being insolvent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody at the company knew that, obviously.
Yeah. Believe me, I was there more than a couple of times. It's just the nature of the beast back in the day, especially in the early growth stages, because I was just running and gunning. I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, somehow I became successful for a while, until you're not, when everyone stops buying, and then you realize when the well goes dry, the well is dry.
Well, you said something important earlier that I don't want anybody to miss if they're listening to this. And you said, when it's good, it's great. But when it's not, what you said is true, and what most people think is wrong. What most people think is when it's not, well, it's not good. No, when it's good, it's great. But when it's not, you're done. It's over. Okay. It's not that it's not good. And you're done. It's over. If you run out of cash, it's over.
And I always share this part of my story. I mean, I had a billionaire client, and all my clients were super successful because I was not cheap. So I told the very high-end clientele what I did, and they love me. They're just trying to help me and tell me, like, dude, what do you, and I'm like, I'm good. I got this, man. What do you know about building water features? You're just a billionaire. You know what I mean? You own professional sports teams and manufacturing plants. What do you know? I mean, that's the level of stupid I operated at.
Right.
And everything they said, Dale, was correct.
Mm-hmm.
If only, right? If only I had listened. If only I had the money I lost.
Right.
It's just, I can laugh about it now. It wasn't really funny then, but it's one of those things. As we're both business advisors, we do great stuff. It's what I remind people, and not because of what I do, but because if you don't ask for help, if you don't seek out help in your business, you do not know everything. You do not have the outside eyes needed to show you the holes in the bucket, to help you fix the holes in the bucket, right? To have that accountability to do all that stuff. That's where you go wrong. We literally compress 10 years into 1 year of costly mistakes, bad decisions, right? And possibly losing your whole business.
Yeah.
Just because you say, wow, someone else actually knows how to do this, that'd be a real big help.
Yeah. I would have to go look this up, but Tim Ferriss did somewhat recently he did some things himself where he was challenging himself to learn really quasi-mastery level skills of certain things like jiu-jitsu or chess in a week, okay, in a very short period of time. And I don't know which of these came first, but there's also a video by a mentalist. His name is Darren Brown, Derren, Darren Brown. And by the way, he's a big celebrity over in Europe. He actually had a Broadway show that I went to see in December of 2020, right before COVID. But there's a very interesting little video on YouTube that Darren Brown shares on his channel. And you just Google Darren Brown, Derren, Darren Brown poker, okay? And you'll see about a 15 or 20-minute episode of one of Darren Brown's shows where he teaches a retired lady. She reminds me of Mrs. Doubtfire. She's a Mrs. Doubtfire kind of figure. And he teaches her in 1 week how to play championship level poker, okay, Texas Hold'em poker. And he enters her into a straight up legitimate championship tournament. And she plays the best poker players in Europe. Comes in second. Only by luck of the draw did she come in second, because her odds were 90% plus that she would win the hand, and the other player just happened to get the luck of the draw. And he taught her how to play poker, championship level poker, in a week's time. So, and one of the reasons that she was able to do that was because there's a couple reasons. Number one, she had somebody who understood how to teach the game really, really effectively. And then number two, she was coached every day, okay, and for long hours, and got very consistent and very quick feedback so she could make adjustments really fast. That's one of the challenges with folks who are struggling, no matter what it is. I mean, their tennis game or their business or whatever it is, they're not getting quick feedback loops so they can correct quickly. And for whatever reason, either they feel like they need to go it alone for pride reasons or something. I don't really know. Or they can just learn it on a book or a podcast or whatever. I mean, you can get a lot that way, but you need somebody to point out your blind spots so you can course correct really fast, and that's how you get there. Yeah,
I agree, and I've seen it now over years and years of coaching businesses. You see those rapid results. I mean, I can verify that through the testimonials of their spouses.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, when they see their business, they've been in for 8 years or 10 years, and they never have a vacation. Don't get to see kids, and all of a sudden they're a week at the beach with all 5 kids, and he's never on the phone, and they're doing, and they're telling me this kind of stuff. He's present. Like, that's what coaching does. It's way beyond just like I have a successful business. You give them back a quality of life as well. And like I said, when you're getting those testimonials from someone who's lived with it, for all these years. I mean, when my wife and I met, my business was successful. She came into it all humming, right? As whatever that meant at the time, but it was going well. She'd never been through the business building process. So starting over was not pretty. Okay. She's going through all like, what is this? What is this business? Like, no idea, right? But you had to get the help. You had to speed the process. You have to learn. You have to get up to speed because she only knew the success and then the failure, the complete failure. Done, lose business, lose the house, relocate. But now she kind of gets, what it took. Because there's no easy beginning.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a lot of people don't understand. There's no real secret sauce to doing a lot of the work to get it at least off the launch pad. But then you immediately need to start getting that help. Hey, if you can get it beforehand, before you start, even better. But not everyone's in that position, right? But even if it's a mentor, somebody who can give you the advice and you're open to learning and listening and seeing others, it just increases your probability of success.
Yeah, true.
I think that's
true. I think
this whole.
I was going to say, I think an easy beginning would be one of the worst strokes of luck you could ever have, to be honest. I've seen people have easy beginnings in our industry here in consulting and coaching. And, and it comes back to hurt them pretty significantly. And on the other side of that too, one of the worst things a person can do is take another person's struggle away from them, because there's a reason why that's happening.
You know what? My son and I, he's in the Marine Corps. He was home. We got to be on a podcast together. So he wanted to interview us, talk about his experience, me raising him and both our stuff. And he said something really, because she asked him about doing hard things and stuff like that. He goes, and he did most of the talking. It was an absolute joy just to sit there and listen to him, his perception of what it was like growing up as me with a father. So it was very cool. But the one thing he said, I'll never forget, he goes, if you ask God to make you strong, he's going to give you burdens.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, and that's how you do this one. I said, dude, that's God, write that down. It's like, there's a 20-year-old. He's a year in the Marine Corps now, he's MSG, all this stuff, but he's got this understanding when he asks for that strength, what actually happens.
Mm-hmm.
You're not Samson,
right?
It's like, no, you're going to get put through the fire. And that's what makes you strong. It's the struggle.
Right.
I'm like, I said, you are wise beyond your years, son. It's just, he had a lot of good stuff like that in the interview. It was really cool.
Yeah, that's great. What an honor to interview your son. That's got to be pretty good experience.
Yeah, it was. I sent it to him. He's overseas guarding embassies and stuff. And he's like, Dad, I go, what'd you think? He goes, I'm not going to lie. That was pretty cool. on the podcast. Yeah. It's good for you, but it is that, it's that struggle in the beginning. That's what makes anything worth it. Come on, man. Anyone can hand you the dough. That's why lottery winners, 97% are worse off 3 years later financially than they were before they won.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're giving it. I always tell people, and I'm not making this up, they say, why don't you play the lottery? I go, because I'm going to earn it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I don't need it given to me. I want to earn it. That was just my mindset. Like, I don't want that. I'll feel much better if I make it. When I cut grass as a kid, I made that money. Yeah. It was $5. I earned it. I earned that $5. You know what I mean?
Well,
I like that. I like that.
Different psychology. Yeah, it's a whole different psychology for sure.
Yeah, we can have a whole episode on that alone. But Dale, this has been awesome. This has really been great. I think we hit some really good stuff that'll be valuable to the listeners here from the business aspect, really understanding that side of the fence. I can't emphasize enough because of what I had to go through, my struggles, made me better. And it's why I do what I do. It's kind of why you do what you do. But there's so much to learn. But again, if you can compress that time, become that expert poker player in a week, take a year and put 10 years of experience and knowledge and direction into a business that you have now. Even if you're at 4 or 5 years or 10, I help guys who've been in business, their business been in business 40 years. And I go and I help them. We do amazing things. So it's not this, well, you got to be in the 5-year range. I'm like, and the great business owners I've encountered, even though they're doing really well, are still looking for help. It's a testament to me, like, okay, here's a guy, he's 37 years in, doing $30 million a year, looks like got everything going, and he's still looking for how do I get better?
Well,
what's another advantage?
It's interesting you say that because I think the people that are the most successful are the ones looking most for the help. And that's the reason why they're the most successful, is they're the ones looking for the help, and they know how to pick good help too. I mean, they know how to tell the difference between somebody with good intentions who is just not really ready or qualified, or maybe just an outright charlatan. Not the same person. I mean, a different person who might just be a charlatan, not good intentions. And then, the grizzled veteran who really does have, the skills and the lived experience and things like that. But then maybe it doesn't require, in some cases, a grizzled veteran with lived experience. Maybe it's just somebody who, is 20 something and they happen to know AI and machine learning like, a genius. They don't have a whole lot of it, but they have a very narrow skill set that they're really, really good at. And that's the right person at the right time. It's real important. It's a very nuanced thing to be able to do, but it's the common denominator is those people that are the most successful are the most open to and always searching for what is it that they don't know that they could get some help with.
Yeah, it's so, like I said, it was all me that first 20 years. Yeah. I'm gonna do it all myself, twice as hard, twice as long, and get it there. But I was so prideful, so full of ego. I didn't want to share credit with anybody.
Yeah,
and it really was. It took losing everything to get that awakening. And now I have I'm not that person at all.
Yeah.
It's so different, and now I can actually help people.
Yeah,
because they don't have that mentality. You know what I mean? So it's pretty amazing.
Well, what you went through will change you. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's like I said, I don't wish it on anybody, but sometimes the right person like me had to have that. That's all I understand. So it's all good. So any parting thoughts as we wrap this up?
Parting thoughts. It's worth it. It's worth the struggle. It's worth the struggle. Just embrace it and know that being an entrepreneur and wanting a level of freedom that most people don't have, it is worth the struggle. And you are in the problem-solving business. And so the problems are never going to stop. Be happy with the problems. Just recognize that the receiving line of that never-ending supply of problems is never going to end. You just want to be solving more complex and more profitable problems as you go along, not the same ones all the time.
That's right. Problems are opportunities.
Yeah.
That's how we look at it, so it's a good thing when you get one. And if you have the ability to solve them, you're in a good place because people need that. And all levels. I mean, all levels. We were talking earlier today, just whether it's 8-figure problems or, three-figure problems. It doesn't matter. If the problems are a problem. They're at every level. So just understand that, embrace it, get the coaches, get the help, solve the problems yourselves, figure it out, make it an offering. That's awesome. Dale, how can anyone, if they want to get in touch, follow you? I know you have a lot of offerings, things like that, but just kind of put something out there for them. I'll throw it in the show notes.
Yeah, I can go to businessbreakthroughadvisors.com, advisors with an O, ADVISORS, okay? And subscribe to my newsletter. You can get that right there on that homepage, businessbreakthroughadvisors.com. And send me an email at dale@businessbreakthroughadvisors.com. I'm happy to help.
His newsletter is awesome. You will get useful content every time. Okay, without exception. I guarantee it. So great stuff. Well, Dale, thank you for taking the time today to be on here. We brought a lot to the table today, a lot for people to take into their dailies and stuff. And man, I just appreciate the time.
I appreciate you. I enjoyed it.
All right. Well, everybody, we will see you on the next STS Sharpen the Spear podcast. And don't forget, revenue feeds the ego, profit feeds the family. So if you want to see how I can show you at least $100,000 in hidden annual profits in less than 3 minutes, and not only show you where, but how to create that 100K in 6 months or less without additional advertising or marketing spend, guaranteed, just go to sharpenthespearcoaching.com. See how truly simple it is. That's sharpenthespearcoaching.com. Do it now.